Hi everybody, welcome back to another video lesson. For the last little while we've been talking about slopes, we've been reviewing fractions, but today we're going to look at tables of values, patterns, and graphs as we start to look at relationships. So our note for today is when two quantities are related in some way, they form a relationship. We've talked briefly about relationships earlier as we were talking about data trends. So values that change in a relationship are called variables. The word variable, we sometimes hear it used when we talk about weather. And a weather person will say, well, variable clouds today. So that means the clouds can change, or the weather is variable, so it can change. A variable is something that can change. In a relationship, the variable that depends on the other variable is the dependent variable. So when one needs to change because of the other one, it depends on the value of the first one. The variable that does not depend on the other variable is the independent variable. An example I can think of when I was a kid, and maybe some of you now too, I'm dependent on my parents when I was a kid. So I depended on them, therefore I was a dependent. When I was a grown-up and I went to school, and then when I moved out, I no longer depended on them and I was independent. In a table of values, the independent variable is placed in the left column, and the dependent variable is placed in the right column. We'll look at a table of values in a moment as we go down and do an example together. On a graph, the dependent variable is placed on the vertical or y-axis, and the independent variable is placed on the horizontal or x-axis. And we'll look again at that as we get to our example. When the graph of a relationship is a straight line, I'm sure I left no space for that one, straight line, the relationship is called linear. The other day, as you were calculating slopes, we were getting the slope of a straight line. It is a relationship of all points on that line or on that slope, and it is a linear relationship. We're going to example together, and we're going to use an example from our garden. The cost of topsoil for our garden from ABC Gardens is $50 a yard. We want to create a table of values, and we want to draw a graph to see if this relationship is indeed linear. So I'm looking at my formula here, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, the cost that I want to have for every yard that I buy, it's going to cost me $50. So my cost equals 50 times 0, because in the first case, I'm buying 0 yards. I just want to graph that and see what my cost is going to be. We know that anything times 0 is 0. And that makes sense. I'm not buying any dirt. I'm not buying any topsoil. So therefore, I don't want to have to spend any money. If I buy 1 yard, still $50 a yard, but I want to times it by 1. And I'm just getting this 1 again from this table of values. 1 times 50 is 50. If we do this again, where cost equals $50 times the yards that I'm buying, in this case I'm buying 2 yards, we're going to have $100 that we have to spend to buy that topsoil. If I keep going down and I say cost equals 50 times 3, So I want to get 3 yards. It's going to be 150. And I'm going to put that in my table of values. And I'm going to complete this. Hopefully I've got enough space. Let me see if I've got some space over here. I'm going to go cost equals 50. 50 times 4, which is going to be 200. So if I want 4 yards of topsoil, I'm going to have to spend $200. And if I want 5 yards of topsoil, let's see what we're going to have to do. We're going to times it by 5, which is going to get us $250. So now I want to graph it and have a look at the relationship to see if it is indeed a line. So we've got to start naming our graph. So down here, I'm going to use a different color. We're going to have yards of dirt. Over on the side here, we're going to have cost. And my title is going to be topsoil cost. I'm going to label or put scales on my graph. We're going to start in the corner here with 0, 1 yard, 2 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards. And up along the side here, I'm going to say 2 bars is going to represent 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, and I'll go 300, even though I don't need to go to 300 because our highest number is indeed 250. I'm going to graph these pieces now. When we have 0 yards, so up here I've got 0 yards, we have $0 that we have to spend. So I'm going to put this right here. When I have 1 yard, I've got to spend $50. So I'm going to go to my graph, find the 1, go up to where it says 50, and I'm going to plot that point. I'm going to do the next one. So we've got a 2, but it's going to cost us $100. So I got 2 yards. I'm going to find that on my graph. I'm going to graph it. I've got 3 yards. It's going to be $150. I'm going to graph that. So I made a little mistake on my graph, just so we got to fix that up. I think I went over too far. So 3 is going to be 150. 4 is going to be 200. And we said 5 was going to be 250. And now I connect the dots. I'm actually going to get a line tool up here and see if indeed we have a linear relationship. And we can see that I have a straight line, so therefore it is a linear relationship. So that's our first example. Remember, at any time you can slow this down, you can pause it, rewind it, and get to the spot where you need to be. I'm going to do my next example. It's a little bit different because in example 2, the cost of our topsoil for our garden from XYZ Gardens, a different store, it's $35 per yard, a little bit cheaper per yard, but they have a $50 delivery fee. So I want to create a table of values and draw a graph, see if a relationship exists here. My formula is a little bit different because no matter how many yards I buy, I have to spend 50 bucks. That's how much it's going to cost to deliver it. So really, even if I called them up and said, I want to buy 0 yards, they're going to charge me 50 bucks if the truck comes. So if the truck has to come from their garden shop to our school, it's going to cost 50 bucks. We would never, ever order 0 yards of dirt. There's our formula. Well, let's see if we can calculate this. So cost equals $35 times the number of yards we want plus 50. So if I want 0 yards, cost is going to equal 35 times 0 plus 50. Remember the day we did order of operation, we got to do multiplication first. 35 times 0 is 0 plus 50. So here's that weird example where you go, even if we ordered 0 yards, we had to pay 50 bucks. If we ordered 1 yard, 35 times 1 plus 50 is going to be 35 times 1 is 35 plus 50, which gives me $85. So 1 yard is going to be $85. Cost equals 35 times 2 plus 50. 50 is going to be $70 plus 50, which equals 120. So we're going to put 120 in here. Cost, if I were to buy 3 yards, 35 times 3 plus 50 is going to equal, what do I have here? We've got 35 times 3, which is 105, plus 50. That's going to equal 155. I put that back in my table of values. Cost here for 4 yards, 35 times 4 plus 50 equals 140 plus 50. There's the bell. You're still in class though because you're at home watching this. We get 190. And then the last one, I've got cost equals 35 times 5 plus 50. And I'm going to have 175 plus 50, which is going to equal $225. I fill in that last value, 225. Well, now I graph it. Same kind of thing that I did before, 1 yard, 2 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards, starting at 0, $50, $100, $150, 200, 250, 300, topsoil cost. These would be yards, and this is cost on the side here. So I'm going to plot these. We'll see what we get. Again, we've got 0. This is that weird one where it's actually going to start at 50. So 0 and 50. We've got a 1. We're going to plot 1 and 85. 85 is right about there, or approximately there. 2 and 120. 120 is going to be about right there. 3 and 155 is right about there. 4 and 190 is right about there. And 5 and 225 is going to be, let me make sure I get the right spot here. We are right on that line. I'm going to draw my line. I'm going to see if we have a linear relationship, and it looks like we have a linear relationship. So again, we're looking at how we can graph these relationships. Remember to have this done for your next class so that we can start practicing. If you need to review it, pause me, slow me down, rewind me, we'll watch it again. I'll see you in class.